Hi, I'm Perry Atkinson, General Manager here at theDove. Hey, check out our other videos and check out our website at thedove.us. Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Earlier, our own Steve Johnson had the opportunity to talk to Nancy Livingood. She's the Social Support Services Manager for LoveJoy Hospice, an outstanding organization that provides wonderful service. So let's join Steve and Nancy now.
Nancy, it's great to have you with us to talk about something that I think is one of those inevitable discussions that people probably have a hard time broaching to begin with, and that has to do with the end-of-life issues, no matter what your age is. Now, as I understand it with LoveJoy, you deal with people who are very old as well as young kids and so on. Since 1981, it started. Right. How have your patients, your clients, how have they changed over the years? Are you seeing the demographic shifting? Because we're getting to be an older population here, in Southern Oregon, a retirement area. Yes. So has that changed since 1981?
Well, I've been with LoveJoy since 10 years ago, so I'm a relative latecomer to LoveJoy Hospice. So I can address that period. We are seeing more of us baby boomers. We're getting older. We're starting to see folks who are maybe in their 50s and 60s a little more frequently. It isn't unusual to see a lot of folks in their 80s and above needing hospice care. But the demographic is shifting somewhat because there are more of us, and more of us living longer, but perhaps with chronic conditions that over time can become life-limiting. So there are changes happening, and I think they parallel the growth and change in our society. We do serve children. Fortunately, that doesn't happen very often, but we do provide pediatric hospice care if it's needed.
Now, you're a total nonprofit separate from a hospital kind of an organization, right?
Correct. We're a nonprofit organization. We're not affiliated with a hospital or any other healthcare system.
How does the process work for somebody who is in a problem medically, who then is transferred to LoveJoy? What is it that occurs? A doctor makes a determination, and then what happens? Well,
a doctor's order is required for hospice services to be provided. And that's whether it's covered by insurance or if it's charity care, because we do that as well. So doctor's order is required to certify that the person has a life-threatening condition that unless something changes, their life expectancy is 6 months or less. So
that's the period. Okay.
Yes, it's somewhat of a set rule, and yet there are nuances to that. We have had folks who have come on hospice and have continued to be ill and becoming more sick, but they live beyond 6 months. That doesn't mean they no longer qualify for hospice if that decline is happening.
How has this, with our healthcare changing and all the rest, has that impacted hospice care as we're seeing the Affordable Care Act and all that? We haven't heard any aspect of that. I don't know if it has impacted you or not.
The Affordable Care Act and the changes in healthcare are touching every part of healthcare in our society. For hospice, I think the challenge is that we provide so much care and yet the dollars are shrinking. We're also, like many other sectors of healthcare, being asked to do more regulatory-wise to prove the worth, where is the benefit, to make sure that people are actually receiving appropriate care and that the agency is not behaving badly and perhaps taking Medicare dollars for services that aren't truly needed. So that scrutiny goes all around, and it certainly is on hospice as well.
And that's a recent phenomenon that you've seen that kind of ramp up?
It's grown. Again, in the 10 years that I've been at LoveJoy, it has, to use your term, ramped up over the last few years. And I think it's just part of the healthcare picture here in the United States. And I don't think that's going to get any lighter.
Yeah. We've talked about this so often and seen so many news stories about the aging population in Southern Oregon. Do you see there's more of a demand for your services in this region?
Yeah, I think there are more of us who are living longer and perhaps living longer with chronic conditions that eventually become debilitating enough to be life-threatening. So we do have quite a few patients who are quite elderly, 80 and above. And of course, 80 nowadays can be pretty young. I think about my folks. They're in pretty good health, but they're in that 80 and above range. So we do see quite a few folks in their 80s and above, but we are starting to see more also who are younger. And I think that's just a reflection of that there are so many of us in that baby boom generation.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the opportunities, the services that you provide. One is called LoveJoy's Treehouse.
Yes.
What is that about?
LoveJoy's Treehouse is a twice-a-year support group for children and their families who have had a death. Mm-hmm. And we offer it at the LoveJoy Hospice location in Grants Pass. It's twice a year. This spring, it will run from Thursday, April 3rd through Thursday, May 22nd. And the intent of the Treehouse is to educate adults, support them in supporting their children and themselves through a loss. We have activities for kids. We talk about feelings. We talk about thoughts. We talk about behavior. We talk about talking about death and loss versus let's not burden the children. We try to help people understand that if they work with their kids in an age-appropriate way to the degree that the children are able to understand depending on where they are developmentally, that is so much better for them in the long run as opposed to leaving them in a vacuum and perhaps filling the gaps with erroneous information about, was I to blame? Did grandma go away because of me? Could I have done something different? Where it helps them just to normalize that death is a part of life. And while they're sad, eventually they can remember their loved one with joy and a little less sadness.
Wow. Well, you certainly have to hit on a whole lot of areas that way. Tell me the mechanics of hospice. Do you have nurses coming in to provide medication? Do you have your own nurses? How does that really work once you get a patient in?
The way hospice works, when a person is started on hospice care, they're assigned a team of hospice staff. That is a nurse, case manager, a professional social worker, spiritual care if they want it, home hospice aide if they want it, volunteers if they want it. So the team will provide the services that the patient and family ask for and set the schedule based on what the patient wants. The things we try to do are work our services in a patient-centered way, patient and family. What are their priorities? What are their wishes? We might have somebody that we're serving who they only want the nurse to come once a week initially. They may have somebody that only wants a phone call from the social worker every couple of weeks. Maybe they don't want to volunteer. So we try to tailor our services according to what they want. And then as things change, if they need the chaplain to come weekly or they need the nurse to come a couple of times, 3 times a week, we try to adjust, again, based on their need and their wishes and their priorities.
Okay, so when they're in hospice care, is this care that you can provide to them at their house?
Yes.
Do you also have facilities where you care for them, or is this totally working with them in their homes?
Right. I'm glad you asked that. There is no dedicated hospice facility in the Southern Oregon area. So hospice services through LoveJoy and the other area hospices are provided where the person lives.
Okay.
That can be their own home. It can be a foster home. It could be an assisted living apartment complex. Wherever that person considers their home to be is where hospice will go and serve them.
Okay. Now, how do you deal with a situation of, as I see it, tell me if I'm wrong, you have 2 sets of groups of people. You have the person who is in hospice getting the care, and then you have the family.
Yes.
I would almost think that the family would be a handful to deal with as well, because now their loved one, the situation has come where this person most likely will die. You say it maybe 6 months, and you have to deal with them as well. So are you doing kind of dual duties in how you approach hospice for that one person?
Right. In hospice care, the patient is the center of our care, but that patient's support system, family as they define it, is also part of that care. So the services we provide are to support that family, educate the family, maybe in caregiving needs and administering the medications and providing for the comfort of their loved one. Also supporting the family to have maybe difficult conversations, to tackle the issues that they want to tackle.
That's got to be a tough one to kind of move through, I suppose.
But in the same way, as I indicated before, it's based on their priorities and their wishes. I'm a social worker by profession, and when I was a social worker working directly with the patients and families, I would go in and I might observe and say, well, goodness, this family's having trouble putting food on the table. Their priority might be something totally different. Maybe, putting food on the table is kind of a struggle they have ongoing, and they deal with it. Where what they may say to me, what we really need from you, what we really would like from you, is help us understand how to support our children as grandma is dying.
I see.
So they direct the care, they direct what their priorities might be.
Okay. I suppose a lot of people have questions about this whole thing. You have a website that they can go to?
We do. It's www.lovejoyhospice.org.
Okay. It's easy to remember. lovejoyhospice.org.
Yes.
Nancy Livingood with LoveJoy Hospice, and it's in your facility, or your outlets are all in Southern Oregon, right?
Right. We're based in Grants Pass, but we serve all of Josephine County. We serve Jackson County.
Okay.
And we serve the southernmost part of Douglas County.
Okay, so that's quite a broad region.
It is. It is a broad region.
All right. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, great organization doing a great work. Well, coming up next, as you know, we're still in special session in the state of Oregon, so we're going to hop up and talk in with our good friend Dave Daughter, find out how that special session is starting to end up in just a few moments.